Hi Swell,
Hello, Gabson.
we're meeting today to talk about your Untethered release.
Yes.
You told me before that you started this track in a special way, right?
Yes. In the beginning, it was kind of it was part of a hot track session. So basically, hot tracks is a group of friends just taking 1 hour every once in a while to create a track from scratch. So basically, you start with a really an empty project. You have your own template and your own samples, but you really start from zero. And so I still have the project I can show you.
Okay, sure, yes. Okay, that's the original project.
Yes, I can. It's quite short. It's only 1 minute, so we can have listen to it.
Okay, nice. So you did all that in 1 hour. That's it?
Yes, yes. So yeah, I started from this loop, which is like a simple synth loop, but I really like the melody and as well the really the tone of the synth. And in 1 hour, basically, I did just some very simple drums, basically kick, snare, and I did some hi-hats, and as well a Riz bass from
Okay.
a template I have. On top of this, I just added some simple voice effect kind of from Contact, and just with two FXs and maybe a few automation, but really nothing very constructed, just a simple project. Basically, most of the time with the tracks, you don't end up with a full track in 1 hour, but just a kind of very strong foundation for a future track. So it's very, very cool.
Okay. So let's switch back to the main project so we can dig more into the individual tracks.
Yes. So basically, from this first kind of draft, I noticed that this sample loop, even if it's really great, like having it looping all the time, it's kind of annoying at a certain point. And especially when I was working on the sound, it was a bit annoying. So I kind of split it up in like multiple small hits. So for example, right after having like it sliced, it went kind of in a later stage to slice it, because in the beginning I had this whole first part with the full loop playing, and it was just very annoying. So I sliced it, then I added as I just mentioned the second layer, and then so in the processing I wanted to have a lot of delay, basically because now, since the loop is not playing all the time, I still wanted to have kind of the sound of it staying there in a lighter way and in more in the side of the stereo field. So if we listen to this track, basically those two layers, when it's not playing, there is still some harmonics still there, and there's a lot of decay, so it blends more in the mix overall, and it feels less strange to have this sliced and then to have it not sliced, because all over the track, basically, there are some in the beginning, it's there all the time, so we have the complete loop, and in the end, we have mostly the complete loop. But here in the beginning, otherwise, it would make just something kind of strange without this big delay.
Okay. Can you show us how did you craft your vocals?
Yes. So actually, I have basically two main groups here. And so it's a vocal I took from Splice. Basically, I just ended up defining the scale from both the scale used here in this loop plus the bass, and as well the line of like small glitchy things in green here. And basically, so I chopped it, like the beginning loop was way longer, so I really chopped it. And still I kept some as well, some small, I would say that can be considered as artifacts. Like it basically here it's the T. And so in the beginning I didn't really like it, but because like I wanted to have really a clean vocal, but I still kept it and tried really to fade it in a smooth way. So basically, yeah, this is a vocal. I kind of chopped it all along, and I use it, this one as well, in the second part.
Can we listen to it in solo?
Yes, yes.
We don't have to last forever together. It could just be a night. We don't have to last. We don't have to be.
So yeah, basically that's most of it. It's kind of repeating itself a lot, but I bit mixed the order, so it doesn't feel as much as it would if I just took the sample and made a simple loop.
Did you wrap the vocals? Like, did you change the BPM, or what algorithm did you use to wrap it?
Yeah, basically, yes. Usually complex, mainly for vocals, I use complex. So basically, in the beginning, it was 128 BPM, and so here actually it's divided by 2. And yeah, I usually use complex for those vocal. Maybe some of them are in complex pro when it sounds a bit weird, or maybe it's on another track in this project. But yeah, usually I go with complex, and then I kind of warp it to end up to have some stuff ending up exactly in the time, but not everything, so it still feel natural. And as well, usually I extend a lot the kind of last word or last syllabus, so it's kind of feel longer and smoother, I would say. Because if we, for example, if we remove this point, and then from there, I just have like the processing stage for the vocal. Basically, I have two main, like two vocal types. Like kind of, I split them in two categories with two different processing. One is the vocals that are more on the side. So, for example, if I solo this, like those vocals are way more like distant and on the sides. And as well, on the contrary, I have those main vocals. So
okay, can you talk to us about the specifics of the processing between the side and center?
So the main difference between the processing of the center and the sides vocal is that for So basically, there are a lot of common points, and as well, some of the samples used on the side are actually the same as the one used in the center. And the part that is basically on every single vocal track I have is first I have a auto tune just with a quite strange scale that I usually don't use, but it ended up being the right one in this case. The next plugin is this gain reduction from GST plugin, something, which is kind of it's just a compressor, but it sounds quite nice on those vocals. And then, so here I have an automation on a delay, but it's just activated for a specific part, just to make the vocal repeat itself, and still without really duplicating it, because it's still a edge delay, which has some quite cool analog properties. And here as well, it's in low-fi mode, so it brings even more difference in the repetition of the sound. Next, I have to say just cleaning up the resonant frequencies. And so here on all of my tracks, I have a kind of gain stage, bringing at least minus 10 dB, just to make the mix simpler in the end. But it's not a proper gain stage because it should be in the beginning, but in the meantime, and as well on Ableton, it's quite interesting to do it that way, because otherwise we need to go through each vocal and to reduce the gain here, and the signal is you can't see it at all, because it becomes really super flat. So yeah, I ended up having this workflow on the vocals. And then yeah, I have a filter really cutting the low, almost a brick wall, because there was some quite big sound coming in the lows, and then I just cutted some frequencies I didn't really like much. Then I have two groups. Like I have the first group, which is the center group, and here I have a de-esser to make it a bit smoother, and as well a compressor, another one, to really bring a kind of unity in those vocals. Still some processing. Here I have Nectar. Here I use it only for harmony, so I have some small other voices at one octave above, as well as a doubler. So this is a plugin from Waves, just bringing more voices and width. Even if it's in the middle, I still wanted to have some width. And then, so in the main group, I have basically the delay and reverb. And on top of this, so I have actually a reverb bus here, but I didn't use it for the vocals because I wanted something different. So the first one is Vintage Verb from Valhalla. Basically, I took a preset most of the time, as I do. I took a preset and I changed the mix. And mainly, I don't really change much settings when I take a Valhalla preset, just mix delay, mix decay, and pre-delay sometime, but I didn't change much. So yeah, I took this huge synth space because it's what gives actually the width I really wanted for this vocal, because even if I want it to be the main element, I still want it to be kind of seems a bit like far in the later the later you listen to it. And as well I have Echo Boy again. So here just a very not kind of complicated with two echoes. And as well, then there is another delay. Basically, the edge delay is only for some parts to just make it's a really long delay, like about 1 bar or something. And here it's just like a ping pong to create a bit more space here.
And what about the bass line?
Yes, we can have a look to it. So in this bass, so maybe we can start with the MIDI first and then dive into the diva and everything. So basically I have some So it's a bass made from Diva. It's a preset I use often. And so basically I have some glides. Oh no. Yeah, it's gliding, but very really tiny bit. And so we have this bass line. I think I created it in the beginning in the first project I showed you in the beginning. And so actually here I have a group because it's the way I can save the preset. And so it's quite simple on Diva. Oh, sorry. Basically, it's just between a triangle and a square. I have a cutoff and some chorus. There is a bit of glide here, and it's in mono. And otherwise, yeah, I have a bit of pink noise. Then I have OTT just to make it a bit more aggressive.
The famous gain stage.
Yeah. Yeah, still the same again stage that we just help for the mix later, and I don't have to put it at -10 in the mixer directly. Then I have a little saturation, and actually I have another like distortion after later. Just after this, so I have a Saturn from FabFilter, which is like a band distortion, like a multi-band distortion. And so basically I just have something warm for the bass, not doing much. And I do some more heavy processing on the top side of the bass to just have the ability to have some higher harmonics and some feel that the bass can overlap the rest. And yeah, then just after the Saturn, I have a side widener. I use it just to bring more width to the bass. And just after gain stage, so this one is named gain stage, but just reducing the volume and as well bass mono at 140. And then there is this LFO that is there enabled all the time. And so it's just there to bring a bit of movement in this bass, and it will sound different from time to time. After this, I have a really small thing, just reducing a bit the sub. And after this, I have the sidechain from the kick. So I use the FabFilter Pro C2.
So you use directly the signal from the kick or some
Yes.
kind of MIDI trigger? Or...
Not in this case. We can use, sometimes I use LFO tools, but here I just signal from the kick drum rack pre-FX, so I don't care about whatever processing is done after. And then I have as well some sidechain on the snare, but I only enable it in the second part, which is way more dynamic. And then just an auto filter for automating and smooth transitions. Then we can talk about the drums or the pads. So usually I start and actually in the previous, the first part of the song, I had a drum rack with both the kick and the snare, but as the project grows, usually I split it up into one track per kind of drum. So I have just one single kick. So yeah, this sample was quite good from the sample pack directly. The only thing I changed was bring a bit of attack to avoid some kind of harsh sound in the transient, and then a bit of decay. Then I just changed slightly the frequency, only 3 Hz, but I just felt like at this moment that it sounded better. And I have a bit of saturation and an EQ. So yeah, as well to reduce the top, like the harsh part. I have a brick hole here, really cutting the super high frequencies. The snare part is maybe a bit more, not complex, but feel, because I have, throughout the song, I have like 4 snares. So there are 2 that I used in the like 3 that I use in the initial part. And actually, so there is this one. I need to make it here. There is this one and this one. So those are from a sample a loop, which is a loop from garage session or something. And here I have a regular trap snare, but just not regular, but a trap-like snare that is less loud. And it's just interesting, so I can have a lot of snares without it being too present. So for example, if we listen to it, I do like I have the second snare that is just this one, and then I layer the two when I really want a stronger strong hit. And then for the processing, I have some parallel compression on the drum just to make it feel like to add some depth. So it's just really I have one signal that is really super compressed, so we can listen to it separately. Not very. There is not much bass left, but added to the original one, it just brings more crunch, and I don't know. I learned this like a few months ago, and I enjoy doing it. So for the pads, I have mainly 3 layers, and I really wanted to add them in this part, in this break, because otherwise it felt quite empty. And so the first one is a serum patch from sample pack from Akiko Matsumoto, and it's a quite good sample pack. A lot of interesting stuff in there. And so if we listen to this one alone, it really has the digital signature, I would say. And I really enjoyed this, but I wanted to have a bit more organic feeling on top of that. So I added the violin, some strings from its session strings from Contact. So it just have a more organic feeling. And in the last part, I had some voices done with Contact. So it's not Exhale again, but it's another bank called Vocalize. So it's not exactly vocals, but it has this feeling that it's a bit vocals. And the processing is more simple on these individual pads. So here I tried many things, and it ended up being just deactivated. But basically, I have the gain stage, and then I have some soothe here, just cutting unpleasant frequencies. And the last part, I just cut a really super high end, boost a bit high mids. And then I have some processing on the global on the group. So first I have a glue compressor. So this is the one I used as well on vocals mainly. And so the next of the processing, so I have a shimmer, and then soothe again, just to make sure everything is clean. And then I have an EQ cutting a resonant frequency. And then I have an auto filter mainly for fade in. And then here I have as well another automation on FabFilter Pro R. So it's a reverb plugin from FabFilter. I don't use it much, but only for those kind of effects where I want to automate a reverb the mix of a reverb, and I think I used it on another track in this song. Like basically I start with the wet at 100% almost, and I reduce the wet so it make feel like the song is coming closer. And yeah, it comes to 29%, so not much effect in the end. Then I have some sidechain that I only enable here after the break. And as well, I have a shaper box. So it's kind of like a gross beat in FL Studio. So in the first track that I did in Hot Tracks, the whole second part was kind of gated with a trans gate from a gross beat, but it was really too much. The effect was really too strong. And so here I still kept the idea of having a gate, but I really play with the mix of this. So in the beginning, the mix is quite, is it playing? Okay. So it's not super fast, but it's really, but here it's complicated to hear because there is as well the sidechain. And yeah, I play with the mix, and as it goes, I increase it because it's interesting as well in this part because I really wanted to have a really dynamic second part for this track. And then there is this ad-lib. I called it this ad-lib, but it's not really ad-lib, it's a contact patch. Often I take a preset. So where is it's in the bottom. So I usually take a preset, and especially in hot tracks because you have like 1 hour, so you don't really have the time to really spend on sound design. So usually when I have time, I usually take a preset, and then what I enjoy to do is to try to change the samples. I don't really mess up with this rhythm engine because I don't really understand how it works. But usually what I do is just change the samples here because I really have a lot of different small samples that are quite clean. And yeah, as well, sometimes I often end up just completely removing the effect chain. So here I didn't, but often I just remove the complete effect chain from Exile to make mine and have more freedom. So then gain stage, Suse again, plus some. So I had quite a lot of issues with this because I wanted it to sound like really glitchy and kind of aggressive, but not much. Like it really reminded kind of the wave of the beginning, kind of like those kind of sound. And so that's why I have this to say here. In the beginning, it wasn't there, but the sound was really too aggressive. So as well, I compressed it to try to reduce the dynamic range. Then I have this, but so it's a shaper box again. The first, like on the previous track, it was used to modulate like a volume. Here it's used to modulate both volume and time, but the time part is just enabled in the latest part. It's not completely, I will play this one. It really creates a second harmonics, like above. And this brings, yeah, exactly. And then after this, I have a portal that I use during the build-up. again to, I think, here it's unstable, the unstable preset, so we can hear what it does. It add as well some more glitches, and as well it has a quite high wet, so it's quite present for portal patches. Usually I try to keep it quite dry because it can easily take on the whole instrument and make it kind of pointless. And then I have two auto filters for the beginnings, one low pass, one high pass. Then I have an imager here to really for the high end to increase the width, and then a delay, regular delay, just with different left and right parameters. Then the last part is the FXs. So there is not a lot of stuff. Like it's not a hard wave track or something where you have like kind of waterfall of FXs falling on I don't know many lines. And I really wanted to try to keep it this way because I really didn't want something sounding too electronic or process, digital. So I have the first thing. So I have here an impact that I kind of changed. So basically I reversed it and I have basically the initial sample sounded like this, I think. Something like this. And I just made it a kind of riser for the the intro of the intro. Then there is this ambient foley, which is like forest thing with some birds, and there is someone that is breathing as well here, which is quite good. I really like the effect it does in the second break. We can listen to it. And then I have this one that I really enjoyed. So it's a atmospheric thing, kind of. It's this. Because it has this electronic style, but still I felt like it's really blending well in the track. And then I have a long sweep up, so it's just a riser, as well as some down sweeps. Most of those effects are coming from Kashmir sample packs. And here, actually, the part where there is most of the fixes is just during this kind of break where I have a kind of funk riser and to break the thing. Then there is a down sweep kind of, and then another riser to make the song start up again. And then I kept this ambience track all along during the breaks mostly. I didn't add it during the actual verses, if we can talk about verses, but during the core part where there are all the drums and vocals and everything. But for the outro, intro, and the break, basically. For the overall processing, I have a kind of reverb bus. Actually, it's a send channel. So I have a convolution reverb, altiverb, forest because that was the intention of the beginning thing. So I really extended the reverb time and the size. And I have some saturation after, and as well some OTT before, just to make it a bit crusty.
So it was really interesting as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your video.
Yeah, and where can we find you to follow your next releases?
Normally I will release this on SoundCloud, so it's soundcloud.com/sww1l or something.
Okay. So I share the link in the descriptions if you wanna listen what Swells does. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.
Bye.